Welcome to Switch Comics. My name is Marco, and today I'm going to be talking about lighting, which is not something I typically do on this channel, but it does pertain to comics, specifically if you're trying to display them, take pictures of them, or have a slab wall like I do here myself. Now, the reason I've more so really started thinking about this and why I wanted to put this video together is because after moving my setup and changing my display and elongating my comic wall, I've had to go to a more complicated lighting setup. And it's something that I've noticed that, I've talked to other people with, and they struggle because everyone hates a glare on their comic. And I've done a pretty good job. There's little micro glares, like for example, right there on the Fantastic Four, like you can see just a tiny little bit of glare on the corner there. But for the most part, there is no glare on this entire wall, and this is using a pretty complicated, a little expensive 3 light setup. But again, this is probably not something most people are going to be trying to light up and everything. There are simple ways to do it, and overall, the concept of it is pretty simple. If the basic concept of removing a glare, so I got a flashlight on my phone here, is it's all about reflections. So think of it, like a game of pool. You hit the pool ball to one side of the wall, and it'll bounce in a measured and equal response. So for example, if I take my light and flash it at this angle, it bounces straight back to the camera. And you can see, like, once I take it and put it straight at the camera, there's a light there, but it's not reflecting off anything. And then, as I put it further away, I'm not sure, it probably isn't strong enough to reflect off anything back there. But even then, it's bouncing in this direction, so it is not creating any issues. So that's the basic concept, and there's lots of ways you can set up your lights. I'm going to go over a few other people's channels, and not to attack anyone. Starting off, I'm going to attack with my old, or not attack, I'm going to start with my old setup, because I had a pretty basic light setup with that one, and there were some downsides to it. When I did this and I wanted everything to be fully, displayed very well, I decided, okay, I'll put a little bit more work into my lighting setup. However, my old light setup had some strengths and weaknesses to it, and we'll go ahead and take a look into that real quick. Alright, so we're going to start here with my old setup, and this was a little bit more of a simple setup. Again, I've had some expensive lights for a little while now, so it's not something, again, that I expect many people to have. So what I have in this setup is one large light pointed up towards the ceiling on the upper left hand side of the screen here. And what that's doing is it's bouncing off my white ceiling and creating a nice cascading light all the way around most of the screen area. There's an additional, just my regular ceiling light that's turned on, and that's more so affecting kind of it's kind of dead center with the camera and dispersing out, but it's significantly weaker. It helps brighten up a little bit. But what I enjoyed about this setup was it was pretty simple. I just had one light that I had to flick on, minus my ceiling light that was already on, and for when I was showing new comics and stuff like that, it was pretty easy to know where the glares would be. The hardest part would be that my monitor would act as another light source, which would cause glares, which was a little bit frustrating. And that's something that has improved a little bit with my new setup. But some negatives that I don't like about this setup is that since the main huge light source is coming from the left side of the screen, the right side of my face is more or less completely cascaded in shadows. It's not a very super well lit overall image. The comics at the end there on the right, and the first 3 or 4 on the left are also, I think, pretty well lit, but then get not crazy dark, but significantly darker towards the 4 in the middle. So that is something I don't love, but again, the setup was simple enough. It looked good enough to me. I was fine with it. And Yeah, it was fine, but it also, like, there's no glares. I mean, there's little micro glares like on the edges of the slabs, but I don't care about that. There's no glares that are obscuring any of the images on the comics, and that was the main thing I was concerned with. But overall, I feel like this was a pretty decent light setup. And I'm going to look at just a few other channels, and I'm, again, not attacking them or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about things that work and things, because with any lighting setup, you are taking pros and cons. So there are going to be good and bad things that happen with any particular light setup. So I'm going to look at a few other channels and just tell you ways that they could improve, things that are working for them. And sometimes, glare might not be the biggest deal to everyone. So I haven't talked to these people about it in particular, but maybe glare isn't their biggest focus. So the other pros that come with their lighting setup outweigh it. But let's take a look at some other people here. So here we have DJ Lynx with his big ring lights. Everyone's seen the ring lights on DJ Lynx's channel, but he has these awesome shelves with all these cool hot toys and everything in the background. And obviously those are there for protection of the figures and everything. But what's going on here is he has the ring lights set up directly, because he's very, very well lit. If you actually look at him, or when he shows a comic here, it displays extremely well. So again, this may be an instance of him wanting to light himself and light his what he's showing off super, super well, and he's just willing to deal with the ring light circles in the back. Now, something that he could do, again, the problem is casting these reflections, so it's bouncing off that shelf directly back into the camera lens. With a ring light, I'm going to tell you straight up, it's going to be pretty hard to avoid reflection, because any direction you turn it will change the main focus of the light, but you're still going to have direct contact with the light at any angle. So ring lights, which I think probably is what most people on YouTube use, are going to be a little bit trickier. He could move it in a way here to where he wouldn't be lit up as well, but again, I wouldn't recommend that unless he wanted to get other types of light and experiment in different types of way. Although I will say, with those big glass shelves behind him, it would be incredibly difficult to find much of any kind of good light source that would light him up well, light the comics up he's showing off well, and not reflect, because he just has a lot of different angles of glass going on there. So this is something that's probably, if I were to be at his place and take, my nice lights over there and mess around with it, there's no guarantee that I could come up with a better lighting, better way to light his setup than what he has now, because it works for what his main purpose. But yeah, let's move on to somebody else. All right, and here we have Team Ohana with what looks like an extremely simple lighting setup of just having just a regular ceiling light bulb. And I could be wrong, but again, you see a lot of light coming from one side of his face, other side is pretty dark. You do have some reflections on the slabs behind him, and there's also a lot of dark spots on the slabs as well. But again, if you're not looking to spend any money or do anything crazy, this could be a fine setup for you. Of course, if you want an even easier setup, you could always just put absolutely nothing behind you, and then you won't ever have to worry about a reflection. It'll just be, a nice matte wall behind you that, is just easy to shoot on. And then I wanted to show this, which is, I'm pretty positive, just a good case of using natural light, which also will come with plus and, or pros and cons. I was going to say pluses and minuses, but anyway. So the reason I think this is natural light, one, if you look at the giant glare on the right side of this screen over there, it looks like a giant window, but also the quality of the light that's actually being used and that's on, Stevie and everything is extremely good. You pair natural light with a decent camera and you're going to get a really nice quality image. I think, the details in him looks great. When he shows a comic, it looks extremely well. So, being able to use natural light is going to give you some amazing detail and quality in that aspect. But then also, obviously, is much more hard to position. You know, you can't change where your windows are. You can't change the angle that his wall behind him is. You can't change the sun. You know, it just is what it is. And again, if this is, you know, a fine setup for him, it's going to work extremely well for the main purpose. Again, not ragging on anybody. I'm a little bit probably more meticulous about that, and it would just drive me insane. I think if I had glares on my background, nobody would care, but I would care, and it would drive me crazy. So I've spent a lot of time angling all my different lights, figuring out what to do. But you can see, especially like on this acetate cover that he's showing off, he is struggling a bit with that big, because that's another thing. The bigger the source of light is, the harder it's going to be to dodge the reflection of it. So, like, while he was showing off that cover, he was having a hard time showing off without having just a giant glare over the top of it. Alright, and the reason I showed a few other people's setups is just because, again, not to pick on anybody, but someone might have kind of a similar setup, be using similar methods, and they can maybe see those examples and say, oh wow, that's why I have that reflection the way that I do, and why I have this issue. And, you know, if you're like me and reflections really, really bother you. Now, granted, I also will say, I am really happy with the way that I have my lighting set up now, because like my face is much more evenly lit. I do still have, because my lights point up towards the ceiling and come down, I would say I have a little bit of an issue, like my eyes is, you know, a bunch of shadow that comes down from around here. I don't have any direct light that is pointing straight at me, which I think is going to be the most common setup. It's a very common setup, an easy setup to do for most YouTubers. Now, granted, you know, I'm not talking about comic YouTubers. I'm just talking about regular YouTubers that probably don't have reflective comics in the background. So they'll just point their light directly at them, and that will work fine. That'll look super great for a simple setup if you're not looking to avoid reflections. The main thing I'm going to be focusing on today is avoiding reflections, and I think the fact that I have, you know, 60 comics up on the wall here and don't have any big reflections. Oh, you can see the reflection in my hand there. But anyway, I don't have any glares, more so, on any of these comics here. I think I've put myself you know, up to the task, and I succeeded. And I want to show you kind of some of my setups and how I have it done. Alright, so the first light you'll see here is right behind my computer desk, and it's just kind of sitting back there, pointing directly up at my ceiling, and then again bouncing off that white ceiling, spreading everywhere. Now, one thing I did have to do with this particular setup is, you see my Doom Patrol comic is pushed back just a little bit because it is so directly close to this light. If I were to tilt it in that direction, it would then get a big glare on it. So as you can see there, when I have it tilted like that, big glare, just push it back in that one corner there, and then now, no glare on that comic. There are a few areas in my collection here that I had to do a few specific tweaks. So another area here that I had to do a few specific tweaks to avoid glares on the big thing is right here on this Ghost Rider. It is just pushed back just a little bit, and this Doctor Strange also pushed back just a little bit. So they're tilted, you know, they go from flat to being tilted at an angle. Well, let's see. Tilted at an angle like that. Well, kind of like that. Either way, you know what I mean. Well, let me grab a comic. So they were leaned up, and then I just pushed the corner back, and then I got rid of the glare. Kind of just like how I did right there. And sometimes you just got to kind of play around with your angles. And for most setups, it won't be that big of a deal. But when you have one that's this big, as more and more space is taken up, your angles are going to change. So for me, this particular area was picking up, well, the next light I'm getting ready to show you. So here is the newest light that I've recently picked up. You can see huge, massive glare as I stand behind it, so the light is bouncing directly in front of us and directly back. And again, that's what this is all about. But without this light, I was noticing my setup in this area was extremely dark, and it really was bothering me. So I bought this light to actually do some short films, and have a little portable light to take with me. But it has now become part of my normal setup as well. You can see when I turn off that light, that area becomes extremely dark. And it was really, really bothering me. I didn't like it, especially when I only had the comic wall and it was up to about like there or so. It was like, that's okay. But then when I completed the comic wall and that just becomes the dark abyss, I was like, I really, really don't like that. I have some more lights. Let me see what I can do. Alright, and this is my last light. Again, another massive, huge, mega powerful light. Super, super bright. And again, pointed up at the ceiling and then just reflecting over off the ceiling to my desk setup here. So that light actually provides a lot. Like I said, it's extremely powerful. I'll show you real quick when I turn this thing off. Huge, huge loss of light there. So it is this, accounts for most of my lighting. The other big light here is the same type of light, and if I unplug it, you'll notice a significant drop on the left side of my face, probably I guess right side of the screen. But yeah, that's the lighting setup that I use. I've had to do a lot of tweaking, moving lights around, and moving a couple comics here and there to get it to a setup where there's absolutely no glare. I guess there is a glare right there on my Galaga machine, but I'm not worried about that. Eventually I will get that turned on. I got to figure out what I did with the power cables. Moving everything around and now I can't find it. But eventually that will be turned on. But not so concerned about the Galaga machine. If I were to turn it slightly, it would probably make it worse. So that's probably as good as that's going to get, and I'm not that worried about it. The comics all look great. No glare. They're bright. You can see them all back there. And yeah, I'm really happy with my setup. If there's anything... again, everyone's setup's going to be a little bit different, whether it be because they have certain things in the background that are at different angles that are going to glare. Some things are going to glare more than other things. Some people have different access to lights. So, some people... Again, I really, really don't expect most people to have the lights that I do. This is way overkill. I would not invest in all these lights. This is hundreds of dollars worth of lights to get to set up to do this. But again, most people aren't trying to light up a whole huge room, comic wall, and yeah. So, take these lessons, take them to whatever scale you're trying to go to, and make it work for you. But that being said, if you have any questions or if you're having any trouble with your lighting setup, even if it's not, dodging reflections, if you're trying to make yourself brighten up, a super, super simple thing you can do, because you might have, for example, like I said, a lot of people buy the ring lights. Well, if you get one and put it directly in the middle, it'll probably be okay. But a simple thing you can do to go ahead and just increase, if you're just trying to make yourself look better and comics you're presenting or action figures or whatever you're presenting, something you can instantly do to increase the quality is have a light on the right side and a light on the left side. Not directly on your left and right, but kind of in the front towards you, but one coming in from one angle, one coming in from the other angle. That's something you can do, which will be a huge help and really brighten everything up. You could even have one maybe more so kind of slightly like to the left, and then one like kind of farther behind to the right or something. You can do more experimental lighting setups. There's lots of cool ways to set yourself up. Oh, you can have like a colored light behind you. Some people like to do that. There's lots of cool things you can do with lighting. And if you have any questions and want me to help you kind of figure out something, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you give me a like on it. Do the YouTube. I never do that. I never ask for likes and stuff. I probably should. YouTube tells me to, but I always just forget, and I feel weird to ask. But anyway, but I would appreciate if you left a like, left a comment on here, generate that YouTube buzz. Let it know that you're liking this one. Really positive reception on the video from a couple days ago with hanging up the slab wall. I feel like I did a little bit of a scuffed job on it, but you know what? I assume probably a good number of us in the comic community aren't the best handymen anyway. I'm definitely better with lights than I am with handiwork. But I'm really happy with everything. The way that everything's come together, me putting up the wall, me setting up all the lights, everything's come together. I was scared to change my setup. I was like, what if I do all this work and I don't like the way that it comes out? But I'm very happy with. I still need to get my action figures set up. That is going to take me probably a little while. And I still need to organize my comics. They're just randomly up there right now. But other than that, I'm very, very happy with all the work that I've put in recently. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. Like I said, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Leave me a comment about it. Shoot me a message on Instagram. I am happy to help you at any point. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you next time.